A pregnant woman is watching as she enters an establishment when the security guard asks her where she is going. She then greets the security guard, but soon he says he wasn't interested in her greeting and asks where she was going. He then asks her if when she got pregnant, she ended up going deaf too and tells her that she should leave. He tells her to get out of that place, as she was not welcome there. She then asks why she is not welcome at that place and the man says that she could not stay there as she was not a customer. She said she could be a customer, but the security guard said that was not possible because he could tell from her clothes that she was not a customer at that place. He then tells her that she should leave, because, after all, single women would not be allowed to go there. She then asks me if the fact that she was pregnant was a problem for the man. He says he didn't care what she was or wasn't, but that he didn't want her to stay there. He then tells her to leave, as he was sure she was only there to try to win over her husband. She then says that he didn't know who she was and the security guard said that she should have been there to try to win a man, but that she wasn't going to make it there. She then tells him that he didn't know her and that he couldn't talk to her like that, but he said he didn't care who she was and that she should leave. He tells her that she should go back to where she came from and never go back there. Meanwhile, another woman was watching what was happening and she couldn't believe that the security guard was again arguing with customers. The security guard then asked if he would have to call the police for the woman, but she said she had a reservation and that she would come in. He then tells her that she would not enter the restaurant and tells her to leave as he would not let her enter the restaurant. She then says that he couldn't judge people that way and that he should improve a lot as the person to be able to work in that place, but the man starts laughing at the situation and says that he wouldn't take a moral lesson from a person who was pregnant. Meanwhile, the employee was actually very frustrated with the situation as the security guard was fighting with a pregnant woman. She then says that even though she was pregnant, the security guard couldn't talk to her that way, but the security guard says he wouldn't let her stay in that place and said he would take her outside. He said he was sure her husband had abandoned her because he didn't want to be by her side. She then says that he had no right to hold her that way, but he said he would take her away. She tells him not to touch her, but he tells her she should have told the person who got her pregnant. He then said he would take her away, but at that moment the employee arrives and asks what was going on. The woman tries to explain, but the man soon says that she was just an employee and was no one important. The employee then asks why the man is doing it. The man then says that he didn't owe the employee any explanation and that she needed to get out of his way. He then tells her that if she didn't stop getting in the way of what he was doing, she would end up looking like a woman, alone and pregnant. The employee then asks the man to leave the woman alone. The woman then asks the security guard why he is treating her that way. He then says that he didn't need to give any explanation to the woman and that he had already told her that she couldn't enter the restaurant as she didn't have the money to pay. She then says that he didn't know who he was talking to, but the security guard tells her to leave and that he didn't care about her. The employee then tells the man that there were many empty tables there and says that the woman could sit at one of them, but the man tells the employee to stop meddling in that matter. The woman says that the employee was right, because there were a lot of empty tables there, but I tell her that she couldn't stay in that place and that she should leave. The employee tells the man to stop it, but the man tells her not to meddle in his affairs and leave. He tells her that if she didn't want to lose her job, she needed to leave. He then tells the woman that she needs to get out of there. She said she couldn't stand being treated like that anymore, but the security guard told her she had to leave. He then tells her that he no longer has the patience to deal with that situation and tells her to leave and never come back. Meanwhile, the employee went to another employee and said she needed to tell her something. She said she didn't have time to talk to the employee, but the employee says it was something important, that she needed to tell her about the other employee. The manager says that she didn't have time to talk to the employee and says that she should settle the employee's affairs between them as she needed to get back to work. The employee says she really needed to tell her what was going on, but the manager says she didn't have time for that and tells her to go back to work. Meanwhile, the security guard was telling the woman that he was sure she wasn't a good person, but the woman says that wasn't true. She then says that she would leave that place as the security guard was not treating her well. He then tells her that she needed to leave and never come back, and when she was leaving, he yells at her never to come back. Meanwhile, the manager was talking on the phone. She then realizes what the man was doing. He was saying to work here. She couldn't tell him what he could or couldn't do. She then tells him she would never do it again, and he said he hoped that was true. He told her that if she did it again, she wouldn't like the result. He said he would end up making the employee's life a living hell. Meanwhile, the manager was saying she didn't know what was going on. The woman then realizes that the manager was there and says that she seemed to be a good person. She said it was a good idea to go to the manager to tell her what had happened. As she was entering the restaurant, the security guard says he had already told her to leave. She then says that she was tired of arguing with him, that she didn't want to continue with that argument anymore. She then tries to enter the restaurant, but the security guard stops her. The woman says she had the right to enter and that she was going to speak to the manager of the venue, but the man said the manager was not on the premises. The woman said that was a lie and that she had just seen the manager. The security guard says that the woman was a very pushy person and that he had already told her to leave. She then says she didn't care what he was saying and starts calling for the manager. The manager then arrives and asks if the woman had called for her, but the security guard says that he was already resolving that situation where the manager didn't have to worry about it. The woman then tries to talk to the manager, but the manager soon asks what she was doing there. She says the woman should be in her house resting. The woman said she was there because she had a reservation. The manager says that she had already understood the woman's plan and that she was there to win over a man. She says that both the manager and security guard were very bad people. The manager then says that the woman needs to leave, but the woman says that both she and her son need to eat. The manager says it wasn't her problem and asks the woman to leave. The woman says that pregnant women also had rights, but the manager says that those rights were not valid in her restaurant. The manager then tells her that she was going to make a call and that when she ended that call, she didn't want the woman to be there. The security guard would describe dealing with that situation. He then tells the woman, although she never comes back, she says that she was tired of that situation, that she would leave. As she was leaving, she began to think about what she could do to feed herself. At this point, the security guard receives a call from his boss. The man tells his boss that the restaurant was fine, that he didn't need to worry. Meanwhile, the woman was wondering when the man would leave so she could enter the restaurant. At this point, he walks out the door and she runs to the restaurant. Later, the employee goes up to the woman and asks if she was okay. The woman says that, fortunately, she was doing very well. The employee then says she was glad she was able to get into the restaurant. The woman says that she managed to get in, but that it was a very difficult task. He apologizes to the woman for what had happened and the woman says that she knew there were very bad people in the world. Later, the owner of the restaurant goes there and the manager says that she needs to talk to him. The man says he had just spoken to the security guard and asks what had happened. The manager says that earlier, a person came to the restaurant asking for food. The man asks if she had given this person food and the manager says yes. He is happy with the answer and says he needed to get back to work. At that moment, the manager sees that the woman was in the story. We are furious, because the employee had let her in. Meanwhile, the woman was drinking a glass of juice and was very happy. The employee said she seemed to be very thirsty and the woman said yes. She says she was very thankful for what the employee had done. At that moment, the manager comes to her and wonders what was going on. The employee said the woman was there because she was a customer like all the others. But the manager said that was not true, as the woman was just a pregnant woman who was there at the restaurant to try to win a husband. The woman says that she was deceived and that she had money to pay, but the manager said that she didn't care about that and asked the man to take the woman away. The manager then tells the employee that she was fired, but the employee asks the manager not to do that, as she really needed that job. The security guard tries to get the woman out of the restaurant, but she tells him to stay away from her and tells the manager that she can't fire the employee. The manager then tells her to be quiet or she would call the police, but the woman says she had money to pay. The security guard then takes the woman's purse and realizes that there was no money there. The manager then tells the employee that she will pay for everything the woman had asked for. The employee says that she would pay what the woman had asked for, and then the manager tells the security guard to take her away, but the woman says that he could not touch her again. The employee then enters the restaurant and begins to think about what she could do. At that moment, the owner of the restaurant arrives and asks what was going on with the employee. She says that the manager had just fired her because it makes the owner of the restaurant very surprised. She said the manager had fired her because she let a pregnant woman into the restaurant. The man says I couldn't understand what was going on there. He then said he would settle that matter and goes to where they were. He goes to the manager and asks what was going on there. She said that pregnant woman was working everyone at the restaurant. He then asks how she could be talking like that to his wife. This surprises her and she asks if that person was her boss's wife. He then asks his wife how she let it happen. She said she didn't want to take advantage of the position she had at the restaurant. The security guard and the manager say that it would never happen again and apologize to the man, because they didn't know that this was his wife, but he says that they didn't work there anymore and tells them to leave. They then apologize again and the security guard says he really needed that job. The man says that the security guard should have thought of that before he did that to his wife. The security guard then says that he didn't want to have to say that, but he was just following orders from the manager. He said that the manager had told him not to let any pregnant women into the restaurant, but the manager said that was a lie. The man then tells them that they should stop talking and that he wanted them to go to the company's HR to resolve the situation. As they leave, the woman tells her husband that the employee had helped her. She said that she had helped the woman with a thing, that was a right thing to do, and then the man said that the employee was the new manager of his restaurant. The employee is very happy with that and thanks him, saying that he really needed that promotion.